that came up that maybe you want to speak about?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. All right. Hey guys, Dr. Nixon here. Happy, beautiful, sunny day in May. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm so excited for today's broadcast. We're talking about fear and anxiety. So as people log on, as you log on, just give us a thumbs up, a hi, a heart. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We're so thankful to have you guys on. So, hey, so today we're talking about fear and anxiety. We have licensed counselor Nicole Moore with us today. We're going to talk and really dive into those two feelings, thoughts, emotions, fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety. Hop into the comments. Have you dealt with it during the last several weeks? Because I know I have. I'll be the first to say, hey, like, yes, I felt emotions of fear. I felt emotions of worry or anxiety. And a lot of us have, just because there's a lot of things that are unknown. So we're going to dive into what are some of the practical things that we can do to take care of our minds, to take care of our hearts during times that are so uncertain, that feel scary, that are scary, that can trigger or create anxiety. And there's a lot of different levels of that word anxiety. So again, I'm joined by Nicole Moore, licensed counselor. We're going to get to hang out with her a little bit. She's going to give us a lot of practical tools and wisdom and maybe things that you could do, things that she's done in her practice to help her clients. So, but before we go there, have you dealt with fear? Have you dealt with anxiety? If you were to ask yourself the question, have I? For me, the answer is yes. On different levels. And sometimes I wave back and forth between, hey, I feel great, and hey, I feel like just the sense of fear or worry or anxiety just because I don't know what is necessarily going on with the COVID-19 and coronavirus. And then there's days where I feel like, hey, I feel like we got this. You know, I remember things like the way God created my body and my immune system. I feel like, hey, like, you know, no problem. We're going to be okay. And then sometimes I'll swing back the other way. So we're going to go through this together. It's going to be really important and valuable. It's going to add a lot of value to your life. If you know somebody who's maybe right now dealing with the fear or worry or anxiety, maybe it's a little bit, maybe it's a lot of it, share this with them. Hit the like button, hit the share button. Let's get them involved. This can really be valuable for a lot of people. So without further ado, Nicole, I'm going to bring you on in.
Hello.
There it is.
So as Dr. Nixon said, my name's Nicole. I am the owner of Counseling with the Purpose. It's located here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I'm super excited to share this space with you guys today. So I'm looking forward to sharing the information to kind of be able to help mitigate this uncertain time for everyone. So again, as he stated, if you know someone that can use some additional support, please share, pull them into this event. It should be really helpful for them.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. Hey, so as we jump into it, I love the name of your practice, Counseling with a Purpose. Give us a little bit of background about how you got into counseling, and then really how you landed on the name Counseling with a Purpose. Yeah. I think is so powerful.
So definitely, thank you. So I do take a lot of pride in that name. It took me some time, but in regards to me coming into counseling, I think more importantly than anything, I ran into some barriers and some walls in my own life and had to be able to kind of navigate through that. And I realized that this counseling process could be really helpful for me. It was, and at that point in time, I wanted to be able to impart that onto others, other people that were struggling through some of the same things that maybe I have in the past. I felt like I could help them through that. Ironically, though, the name itself, I battled with whether or not I wanted to continue into private practice because of the insurance piece of things. Oftentimes, it's hard to get attached to insurance companies. In my mind, that's a cultural issue, and oftentimes those that need help can't attain it. Right. So that was a battle for me. At a point in time, I said, you know what? Maybe it's something I'm not going to do. And I was riding down the street one day, thinking about what I was going to cook for dinner, and the Lord interrupted me. And he told me the name, and that was pretty much it, and I think that's part of faith, being obedient. So when he gave me that and he dropped that in my spirit, I knew that that's where I needed to be. And so that was really powerful for me. And that's really how I came about the name. I cannot take credit for it on my own.
Yeah. No, I love that story. It's so powerful and so important, just having purpose. And you're right. There's so many people who need what we have. And what we have is really just helping people experience wholeness, right? To be whole, mind, body, and spirit. So listen, right now in our world, Corona, COVID-19, there's so much uncertainty, right? Which can really generate fear. Is there a common theme that you're seeing just with your clients, with your family, friends, and people you've been working with, and what they're coming in with in regards to fear or anxiety? What are they communicating? What are they feeling? What are they saying?
Definitely. So, one common thing that I've seen is a rise in the need for couples counseling, and that alludes to another pandemic I think that's on the rise, and that's domestic violence. So, a
Mm,
lot of couples counseling has been coming in, and we are trying to deal with some of that. But even in that, uncertainty is the common thing. The uncertainty of what's going on and being able to accept that without becoming flooded with emotions. That's been hard for a lot of my clients, and that's definitely what we're dealing with. We start off by just talking to them about expectations versus reality. And when expectations outweigh reality, that equals dissatisfaction. So that's
okay.
something that we really want to keep a finger on our pulse in and be really flexible about. So that's typically where we start when we talk to
What
them
is
about uncertainty.
what does that look like? So I have the expectation that I, would normally go to work and bring home a paycheck, and so
Yeah.
then that expectation's not met. So I respond with dissatisfaction, which
hmm
can look like what?
Dissatisfaction often looks like shame,
Okay.
oftentimes guilt, but the common theme on the end of that is I am less than, right? Because I'm not able to follow through on what I would either normally do, or I'm not able to meet what I feel like is my values or my expectations for reality. So we need to remember that different is not always equal to less than. The thought of commonality, that we're all going through this together, is soothing. It definitely is. And that's a good piece of what's going on now. But we have to remember that we are not all in the same boat. We are in the same storm. We're going through this thing together, but we're not all in the same boat. So the key is to remember that different does not equal less than. And you have to do what's a good fit for your family and your family system. And that may not always look like someone else. We really do get stuck sometimes comparing ourselves to others.
No, that's so huge and important, right? So I mean, just with that same example, right? So like I used to get a paycheck and now I'm coming home and I don't. I feel maybe less than or less than I used to because I'm not providing or whatever that means for my family. I have other emotions of, shame, feeling, worthless, not enough. And then I express those emotions as frustration, anger.
Usually anger, usually, because anger is the easiest emotion to feel. Oftentimes we say that anger is the emotional bodyguard. That's an emotional shield that most people will revert to because it's easy. No one wants to feel vulnerable. So oftentimes those thoughts, those internal thoughts, manifest as anger. Sometimes it's different for everyone. It's really individualized, but that's usually where we lean towards.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, when this whole thing started, I felt there was a lot of uncertainty behind like what's going on, what's happening, what is this virus? And then when fear sets in, I mean, there was one time I was like, listen, let's just shut it all down. Like just
Yeah.
call it quits. This is frustrating. This is uncertain. I feel scared. I feel worried. So when someone comes to you like that, how do we help them go from up here in dissatisfaction or anger or shame? How do we help them bring it down and center? What are some of the tools
Okay.
maybe you use with your clients or someone might be able to try?
Well, there are a couple of different ways. It's good to remember that it's all about individuality and person centered care. So that's going to be different for some clients. So my number one is I need to gain a rapport with my client. I need to get to know them, what works for them, and kind of what makes them tick, what their triggers are. And that can be difficult sometimes because they don't know that. So that's a process. But once we get there, a good way to start is to kind of figure out what my stress responses are. Oftentimes, when we're overwhelmed with emotion, we become very rigid. We expect much from others. We demand things from others. We can be restrictive in our eating. So, you want to identify what your emotional stress responses are and whether or not they're healthy. If you get to the concept that they are not healthy for you, that they are not hurting you, then you think about, okay, what's going to make my garden grow? What pieces do I need to attain where I want to be? So you want to identify, where you want to be and what conditions in your life need to change to kind of get you there.
Yeah, I love that. What makes my garden grow?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so here's one that I've been seeing walk into our practice. Person feels emotions, whether it's scared or worried, but their life is just different right now. It's changed. So they're at home, they're not going to work necessarily, and there's a lot of free time, right? Whatever that means. Maybe they don't necessarily have kids, and so it's easy for them to just sit on the couch, veg out, watch Netflix, and not do a whole lot. That's not healthy either, right?
It's not. So then you do want to get to more practical, simple ways of dealing with anxiety. One of those is just self-care, self-love, and self-tolerance. Those are
Okay.
all so important.
So those words, I mean, it wasn't that long ago in my life that those words felt really funny to me.
Yeah.
Self-care, self-love. Like I love myself. I probably love myself too much, but that's not, I'm like, maybe people call that like cocky or confidence or whatever, but that's not what we're talking about. What is self-care? What is self-love? What does that mean?
All of those are grounded in self-awareness and emotional intelligence. So that takes a lot of intrapersonal communication within ourselves to obtain some of those things. And the key is that you don't want to torture yourself with your thoughts. That is not how we're made to be. We're not built to feel that way. So you start there by identifying some of those negative thoughts and being sure that you're being mindful of changing that.
Yeah, that's good. Is that where it goes from fear to anxiety when someone the fear is there, but then the anxiety feels like I'm being tortured with my thoughts? Is that
Exactly. Exactly. And what's interesting is, how we think, it changes how we feel. And how we feel is very closely tied to our behaviors. So if we can start with the cognitive, we're able to honestly change the way we feel. Like you always say, our bodies are made to heal themselves, but you have to be able to understand your body to do that and make that effective for you.
Okay. Yeah, that's so huge. So, okay, going back to some of the practical stuff. So someone comes in, they're fearful, they're worried, they're stressed out. So self-awareness is helpful. So where might we start? Like if I'm feeling worried or scared, expectations aren't met, where can I start just as a husband, as a wife, as a parent?
Definitely. First, and easiest is often to lean on someone that you trust. Someone that historically has been able to give you guidance, whether that be your pastor, your husband, a really close family member. If you can't get the relief that you need there, I think the next step in progression would be someone like me. Call out and seek help from a professional to see if it's something that they may be able to guide you through.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, real quick, since we're on the topic, where can people connect with you? Online, website, Facebook?
Yeah,
Where can they find you?
So you can schedule online at counselingwithapurpose.org. You can also email us at info@counseling.org. And you can call us anytime. It's 336-778-3370.
That's good. Cool. I want to go here next. So we talked about connecting with someone that you trust, right? So a pastor, a friend, a counselor, someone like you, just to start talking through. And I know for me, at least, when I start talking about the way I feel, it's not easy. It's probably not easy for a lot of people. But here's how I feel. Here's the thoughts I'm having. It does something to validate the way I feel, or it makes me feel like I'm not alone. What have you seen being some of the biggest values of actually just expressing your emotions?
Oftentimes, the validation is a big key. Like you said, knowing that I'm not alone in this. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because when we're stressed, we're not going to make the best decisions cognitively. So if you are going to lean on someone and they don't give you that response that you're looking for or need, it's going to reinforce some of those negative thoughts and feelings. So
Yeah.
it's just really important to go to the right person, but definitely the validation, but unbiased ear, being able to, some of the catharticism in that is also helpful. Before you get through the process of making change, you have to be able to address where I'm going wrong, and being able to get that out and verbalize that is just helpful in itself.
That's so good. Going back to the self-love, self-care, practical examples of that. And so for anyone tuning in right now, if you have a good just self-care, self-love rhythm that has helped you, would you share it in the chat? Just let us know what you're doing to help yourself. Because right now, I mean, we are in this together. Situations are different for a lot of us, but self-care, self-love is so valuable and important. So maybe for you in your life, Nicole, like what does that look like, or what are you using with your clients, or what are some of the things that you're telling them they might be able to do to practice self-care and self-love? And I know it's so different for everybody.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
we all get filled up differently than someone else. We were talking with our friends about like rest. You know, how do you get filled up on your Sabbath day or on the weekend? Like, what does that look like for you? And it looks very different for all of us. So self-love, self-care, what does that look like?
So that definitely goes back to just really understanding and accepting that different doesn't equal less than. Something that works for me or my client may not work for you and your family.
Mm.
But some practical things that I do recommend are deep breathing exercises. There's one that I really lean towards, and it's called 478. You can go to my website and get a little bit more information about that. You can
Four,
also reach
seven,
out. It's
four,
called
seven.
478. And sometimes people lean on breathing exercises, but we're not doing it in a way that's evidence based. So you don't reap the benefits that you would if you were doing it correctly. So you do want to make sure that you're practicing it correctly. And that's a part of self care, practicing new healthy behaviors. That's practicing self care in itself.
Yeah, that's good. That's so good. Gratitude. I feel like that one right there is a big, for me, especially is a big winner. I have a gratitude practice. I write out things. I try to do 5 new things. At first, I was just doing 5 things, and then I started doing the same 5 things, like my wife, my kid, coffee. Uh,
Coffee.
yeah,
I
those
like
are
that
the
one.
3 things I'm grateful for. Jesus, he was right there too. So, but gratitude is really helpful. Is that a really good rhythm? What does that do for our minds? Gratitude.
Definitely. So actually, whenever my clients get stuck, they get in a point where they're really stagnant or they get in a dark place, that is what we go to. We practice the attitude of gratitude.
Mm,
That can be a last resort to really get you out of that place. So that is definitely important. I do tell them to do affirmations. I recommend that for anyone. And I often tell them the way I do it, and even for my children in my household, we do dry erase markers. So we will write our affirmations on a mirror in our bathroom because we spend a lot of time there, right? And
yeah,
we can change them daily. So we put them there, and it's really helpful for us to kind of get out of those dark places if we find ourselves there.
that's cool. Is there a new one that maybe wasn't there 6 weeks ago or whatever because of Corona and all the uncertainty? Is there a new affirmation?
For me, I can give you mine.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am thankful for peace and stillness
Mm,
because that promotes reflection for me. And I'm not in my day to day always able to implement that. And I want that to spill over. And when we do find our new norm, I want those concepts to spill over for me. So that's mine right now. Just peace and being still because I don't always get to do that. And that's a big piece of being able to find that gratitude.
yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that. If you have any questions about fear, worry, anxiety, or thoughts, good ones that you're having that's helped you get through this time, put them in the comments box. We want to help people. If you have concerns, questions, please post them there. If you're looking for a licensed counselor, check out her website. Give that website one more time.
Sure, it's counselingwithapurpose.org. You can find us on Google. You just Google us up with so many ways to kind of reach out to us. I
All
do
right.
want to take a second to Dr. Nixon to just kind of tap into gear shifting techniques, if that's okay.
Yeah, please, let's go.
Okay. And they're really practical and very quick, something that you can lean to. Um, One caveat, there is a difference between distracting and avoiding. Okay. So distracting can be very healthy at times when you need to be able to cope with something that's going on internally. So the gear shifting techniques are just that. They're for distraction, not avoidance, which means that afterwards, at some point in time when you're in a healthier place, you're going to go back to the things that were bothering you. But a good one is meditation. And I recommend the Headspace app to all my clients. I use it myself daily, and I have fallen in love with it. So it's a wonderful app. It promotes the concept of being here and being present, and that's called Headspace. It will help you learn meditation on your own time.
Yeah, Headspace. I did that one several years ago, and it's free. The first, like, I forget how many sessions, the 5-minute sessions were free. So Headspace is
Mhm.
really good. I'm currently using one called Soul Time.
Oh,
Soul.
okay.
It's has a Christian perspective to it, and I've been doing that one. And there's also, it's free up to a point, so that's been really good. Hey, can we answer
Okay.
that question right there? I love that. I think that question's important. I think I am not a licensed counselor. I see patients who deal with anxiety. I've felt worry. I've felt anxiety. I've felt fear. For me, if I was to distinguish it, I'd say you physically feel. I physically feel anxiety, and I think fear. Uh,
Hmm.
so for a real answer from a licensed counselor, how do we distinguish between fear
Yeah.
and anxiety?
So fear is definitely emotion, and a very powerful emotion. And when we experience, and what we have to realize is that fear and all emotions, they're warning signs for us. Oftentimes we want to avoid them, but that's not the purpose. That's not why God gave them to us. So when we feel fear, that means that we are scared of something, and that's not always fearful of our life or death. Sometimes that's fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being lovable. And honestly, fear guides a lot of the decisions that we make in life without us ever knowing it. So I
Mhm.
think sometimes fear can be a lot more quieter, a lot more calm and indirect than anxiety can. So fear is something that's internal that you have to work with in regards to your self awareness to be able to first identify and then control. And anxiety is something that you can feel and manifest best physically. So that's the real big difference. And fear can exacerbate your anxiety.
Yeah.
So one can definitely affect the other.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've heard this. I've heard this statement more in the last month or so than probably in a long time. But people are, faith over fear, right? Faith over fear. I've also heard facts over fear, which I think is fine too. But faith over fear. What is that? I mean, I think that's important. It sounds good. It sounds great, actually. I'd rather have faith than have fear.
Mhm.
But still, like in the day in day out, like that can be hard. How do we cultivate faith over fear?
Okay, so I would first kind of just define what that phrase means to me. And for me, that means being able to take that first step without actually really seeing where we're going, right?
Faith.
And yeah. And so that's what the faith over fear means to me. And some people may interpret that different. That's how I interpret it. And it's impossible to please God without faith. It's not possible at all. So we cultivate that in two ways. One is by feeding our spirit. We want to feed our spirit to make sure that we are in a good place emotionally and spiritually. And that can be done by scripture, that can be done by positivity, the people that we involve in our life, the energy that we have. And you can create the energy that you want to have around other people. So that would be the first way. And the second way for me is works, because as a body without the spirit is dead, faith without works is dead too. And so it's our responsibility to make sure that we also take steps, and I think for that is it's the concept that I can be cautious and not fearful, right? So our deeds that are the fruit of our obedience. So we have to be obedient and actually put in the work as well. And I think sometimes that's where we kind of get that that phrase confused, because it doesn't mean that we don't have work to do. It doesn't mean that we don't have to take action. But faith is demonstrated by our actions. So we have to remember that we have to play a part in that too.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and there's a lot. I mean, right now with all the things that are changing, it's important as ever to check in with the people you love, with your family, with your friends. You might
Yes,
not be able to
yes.
physically go to their house, but you can connect with them. My wife and I, we have couch time. We sit on the couch, and our conversations the last few weeks are different, but we're checking in, like, how are you doing, emotionally with worry or fear? How are we handling this uncertain time that can be really frustrating in moments, scary in another moment? Someone had posted love languages. I think that's a beautiful tool. I know that was helpful, and it still is helpful in our marriage. Just knowing for myself, how do I experience love for my wife? How do I give it so that she receives it? I mean, that's a beautiful tool to use. Understanding what that looks like and feels like in the context of relationships and marriage. That's been a helpful tool, and I think can be helpful with fear and anxiety. So you said cultivating, I don't think you used the word cultivating faith, but just the practice of staying grounded or connected to your faith, whatever that is. And obviously, for us, a Christian perspective. So how do we do that? So, I mean, we can't go to church. We can go to church online. We can't go to small groups. We can go to small groups online. I mean, what are some of the other ways we can do it?
Again, I definitely believe in goodness to fit. So it's all about what works for you and your family. And in some ways, I think this movement that we have in regards to commonality has helped with that, because we have become really creative in how we nurture our relationship and our spirituality. So oftentimes my family will sit down and we'll do a Bible study as a family system. Maybe one day it's something that my daughter can relate to a little more because she's 7. And then the other day, maybe my son, because he's 14. But that's the way that we've kind of had to shift or pivot in regards to making sure that we stay where we need to be in our relationship with the Lord. My mother, she has, for Easter, they did a very early morning service, in their neighborhood. And it was just a cross and 3 or 4 people. But that's the way that they were able to get filled and be fulfilled without having to go outside of the social distancing. So just have to be creative and do what works for you.
I love that. I love that so much. And I really love this conversation. I appreciate it so much. And there are a lot of different ways to cultivate faith. And I made a nature walk in my backyard. It's like 12,
wow.
It's like 12 feet. It's not really a nature walk, but I got weeds. I borrowed a weed whacker. It was helpful, but I go out there and I connect to God and myself, and stay grounded and rooted that way. Because this is a time where it just feels different, but we have just the emotional, physical, spiritual well-being and wholeness to walk through this and guide ourselves and our loved ones and each other through this. So, hey, any last thoughts, words, encouragement for people out there who are maybe struggling again just with fear and anxiety? What any last words?
Yes. And before, I just have a really quick question for you. When you do your walks, when you do your nature walks, are you barefoot?
I am barefoot.
Go ahead. All right. So
we're talking about grounding. That's when we start getting woo-woo. People start leaving when we start talking about that stuff.
Why? Tell me why. What makes you do it that way?
So there's a positive negative ion discharge imbalance between you and the earth. So our bodies collect positive ions when you put your feet physically on the earth. There's an exchange between positive and negative, so diminishing free radical effects. That's why. So from a scientific chemical perspective, there's a lot of goodness there, and I love being barefoot.
Okay.
I love it.
And from a psychological perspective, there's a definitely a good premise there. So it's a way to be grounded in general, psychologically, emotionally too. And I'm sure those two are tied together, the scientific part of it and the psychological part of it in some ways. But there's one more technique that I often use, and it's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But you do want to do things like that when you find your mind wandering and bouncing from one anxious thought to another. You can stop and do this, and it kind of helps you bring yourself back inward and be able to cope with some of those things that are going through your mind and slow them down. And it's really simple, and I'll just tell you really quick what it kind of looks like.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay. So you're going to identify 5 things that you can see. You're going to identify 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 that you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. And in identifying them and acknowledging them, you want to be very detailed in that. So when your mind's kind of, what we say, going down the rabbit hole in regards to anxiety and being overwhelmed, this really helps bring us back and acknowledge the here and now. And so that's a really good grounding technique that'll help you kind of bring yourself back in.
I love that. Just the present moment.
Mm-hmm. That's just really important to try to be present, especially in times like this.
That's so good. Anything else?
I think that will probably be it. Just being present and make sure that you're focusing on the here and now. And I just want to kind of reiterate that different does not mean less than. And we have to remember that we can't get stuck comparing ourselves to all the things that are going around the world, because we're more than enough.
That's so good. I love it.
Thank
I love
you.
it so much. But, y'all, this has been Nicole Moore, licensed counselor, counseling with a purpose. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's been really helpful and fruitful and valuable, I think, for a lot of people. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope this is a blessing to you. Again, my name is Dr. Nixon with Nicole. That's my beautiful family right there. I did want to put this up here. We'll put it in the comment box here in a second. If you're looking for help, if you need someone to chat to, if it's fear, worry, reach out to a friend, a church member, a pastor, a counselor. Find someone to talk to. If you're looking for some health wisdom, you have questions in regard to the physical body, and maybe you're dealing with whether it's aches or pains, or you're looking to maybe ask questions about the immune system, or what can you do when a lot of the doctor's offices aren't quite running at full capacity. I opened this up last month, and it's been really great. I'm doing 15-minute just phone conversations with people. I've been doing them from people all over the place. If you're a patient of mine, I'll give you my wisdom and health advice. If you're not my patient, I'm not your doctor, so we'll just have a conversation. I'll give you maybe some thoughts or ideas you can try. But we'll put the link in the comments. Find a time on my calendar, and we'll connect. I'd love to serve you guys in any way that I can. So, hey, Nicole, one more time, you're amazing. We love you so much. You're the best. We appreciate your knowledge and your wisdom and your advice. So, love y'all. We'll see you guys next time. Again, it's been Dr. Nixon from Twin City Health. See you guys later.